وصلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue kitaab-attawheed, Sunday, December the 2nd, 6:49 p.m., 2018, which is in direct correlation with now. Today is Rabi' al-Awwal. We're still in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, which is the 23rd, or actually the 23rd night is concluded, 24th night of Rabi' al-Awwal, the year 1440 after the hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. And we continue kitaab-attawheed in the chapter who is explaining about al-hidayah. Actually, it was the statement of Allah Ta'ala. As everyone looks in their books, it says, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, verily you, Muhammad, do not guide whom you will, however Allah guides. Verily you do not guide who you love, however Allah guides whom He wills. And He is most knowledgeable of those who are properly guided. That ayah, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, as there are numerous benefits that can be extracted from all these ayat. And in those ayat are refutations against people who deviated from what is correct. Keep in mind, like we said, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, all the ayat in the book of Allah have been arranged in a precise, accurate manner in order to also contain haqq, that it can be utilized to refute batil at the same time, to refute falsehood at the same time. And you will see how that will manifest and what we explain in the different categories of what we stopped at actually, which is the different levels or the different types of hidayah. Notice that the great Imam that he put in this chapter, starting or inaugurating the chapter with al-hidayah, that specific hidayah which is only in the hands of Allah Ta'ala. However, we talked about hidayah or huda, as it means the same thing. Hidayah and huda all mean the same thing. Al-hidayah, ya ma'ish al-ikhwa, as we know, is ilm al-nafi'. It is beneficial knowledge. Al-hidayah is beneficial knowledge, no doubt. And al-hidayah, which we'll talk about and discuss, also is the iman, or the iman in which Allah Ta'ala puts in the hearts of some of His servants, besides others. And we talked about the different types of hidayah, starting off with the first one, which was what, everyone? What they call al-hidayat al-amma al-mushtaraka bayn al-khalq. General guidance, but this is not the guidance of iman. This is guidance in what benefits the creation, generally. And that's conclusive, or that's comprehensive for a non-Muslim and a Muslim. It's not the guidance of iman, but guidance to what will benefit them for rectification of their daily lives or how they live and things of that nature. As we know, Allah Ta'ala says in the book, before we start to get into everything we want to talk about, but before we start to speak and elaborate on this matter, I wanted to open it up by saying, of course, before we go back to what we stopped at from last class, as we know, Allah Ta'ala, the guidance of success, which is the third category, which we talked about last class, that's in the hands of Allah, which is the guidance of the heart, the guidance for success, the guidance for iman. And Allah puts that in the hearts of His ibad, of His servants of whom He wills. And He holds it back and deprives of His servants of that hidayah of whom He wills, of the third categories we know. And other categories in certain situations, which we'll talk about and discuss, inshallah. Don't worry. But ultimately, all the guidance is in the hands of Allah, especially the third category, which is the guidance of the heart and the guidance for success. That is from Allah Ta'ala only, and no one is able to control the guidance of the hearts of the ibad, of the servants, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the ayat, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, when you come across an ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, He guides whom He wills and He misleads or misguides whom He wills or He guides whom He wills. That ayah is a refutation against the Qadariyah. You'll find that the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, rahimahullah, that he put in his book Qa al-Shari'ah, that book in which we took an excerpt, a small portion of, about 5-6 months ago. He said this in his book, in kitaab-attawheed. He said that is from the proofs that Allah, that from His qadr, from the proof that Allah Ta'ala has will of His creation. He says in all the ayat that Allah Ta'ala affirms that the guidance of success in the hearts is in His hands. Because based upon, as we know, the ideologies of those who deviated in the affairs of the divine decree of Allah, is the belief of the qadr, or the deviation in the aspect of the divine decree of Allah. What they believe is that Allah does not have will over the creation. Meaning that Allah is not able to guide the one who is misguided, nor misguide the one who is guided. That is from the belief of the Qadariyah. The Qadariyah believe from the deviants or the deviant ideologies of the Qadr is to believe that Allah has no will of His creation. Rather, the ibad, all of them are in control of their own will or their own destiny. That Allah Ta'ala does not know, based upon the extremists from them, He has no knowledge of it until they actually do it. Some of them believe. But ultimately, they remove the mashi'ah, or the will of Allah over the creation. When you remove the will of Allah over His creation, that means that Allah Ta'ala has no dominance over guiding anyone or misguiding anyone. That's the reason why you'll find that the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Ajurri in his book called Sharia used these ayats as a refutation against those who deviated in the qadr, which shows that Allah Ta'ala has His will over the creation, and part of His will is Him guiding certain people and misguiding others. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Is it clear what I'm saying so far? I'll say it again. The Qadariyah believe that Allah Ta'ala has no will over His creation. What does that mean? That means something takes place in this existence that Allah did not will, whether it be good or evil. We know, as what we've been learning in our Aqidah and the classes in the books of Aqa'id or the books of Creed we've been taking, that Allah Ta'ala has His mashi'ah, or His will over the creation. He has His will over His creation. He has His will over the creation. Likewise, we know the creation likewise have their will. But the will of the creation falls behind the will of the Creator. So the will, we affirm it for Allah over the creation, and likewise the creation has their will. But the will of the creation falls behind the will of the Creator. The Qadariyah, from their deviant ideologies and beliefs and their convictions, is what? That Allah Ta'ala has no will over the creation. He has no will over it. Some of them say that Allah just has will over what is good, and they take away the evil. They say that Allah wills good, but He doesn't will evil, which is also incorrect. Allah Ta'ala allows good and evil to happen out of infinite wisdom. Both. You'll find, as we'll talk about the ideologies of the Mu'tazila, and I'll remind everybody of what Al-Qadi Abdul-Jabbar al-Hamadani, that he mentioned in his narration of what happened with Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini. I'll mention that again. Don't worry, it's going to come. I'll mention it again in this class. So we say that the belief is that Allah Ta'ala allows good and evil to happen in this existence. He has control over it, full awareness of it, all knowledgeable of it, in every aspect. Allah allows it to happen. Based upon the deviant ideologies of the Qadariyah, they say that Allah Ta'ala does not have any will over the creation. And you'll find that Ahl Sunnah, especially Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, rahimahullah, Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, rahimahullah, when he embarked upon refuting this ambiguity, he said if that was the case, that Allah has no will of the creation, then that means that Allah is not able to guide the one who's misguided, nor can Allah misguide the one who's guided. Because that His will has been what? Removed. That's the reason why you'll find that all the ayats in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirms that He guides whom He wills and He misguides whom He wills, that is from the affairs of what? Of refuting the Qadariyah and their belief system. Though any ayah, when you see that Allah guides whom He wills or He misguides whom He wills, is a refutation of the group called the Qadariyah, who deviated in the aspect of the Qadr, who deviated in the aspect of the divine decree of Allah. Because from the divine decree of Allah Ta'ala is guiding whom He wills. What's the proof of that? The proof of that is in the book of Allah. A person will say, what's the evidence? The evidence is in the book of Allah. You hear it every Jumu'ah. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. So Allah Ta'ala mentions His book, سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى. The one who created and then perfected His creation. The one who made the divine decree and guided. You'll find that Ibn Abbas mentioned in his book, or with tafsir, he said, Allah made from the part of khalq taswiyah, from creation, making it straight and upright and perfected. And He made from qadr guidance. How they both connected. How they both connected. From guidance, from His guidance is His what? His divine decree. And we know His divine decree is from the absolute, perfect, precise meanings of His rububiyyah of Allah, which is the lordship of Allah. Because all those affairs are from His lordship. Because it shows His total domination, tabarak wa ta'ala, over His creation. Where He guides whom He wills, and He misguides whom He wills. Tabarak wa ta'ala. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So Allah Tabarak wa ta'ala made al-hidayah from His qadr. If you notice in Surah Al-A'la, did He not? He tied both together in. As your father Ibn Abbas mentions in the tafsir, He made from khalq taswiyah. Khalaqa fasawwa. Creation. Not only did He create, He perfected His creation. And qaddara fahada. He what? He had perfected, He pre-divine or made a destiny. And He made from that meaning of destiny and decree of guidance. And Allah made it a qad from hada or huda or hidayah from the qadr. That's the reason why you'll find that Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, when he refuted the Qadariyah, he used these ayats based upon this type of fiqh and this insight of the ayat in the book of Allah. It's deep, isn't it? طيب. So you see, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, in this regard, this first type of hidayah, before we start again, that's the reason why we say that Allah Ta'ala particularized some of His servants with guidance, and He deprived others of it, because of a right that is from their rights. However, if Allah wants to guide one, He will be guided. بل rather يحتجون بالقدر لما يصدر عنهم من كفر أو معصية أو تقصير. That goes back to the situation of the Mu'tazila. But anyway, as we know, that is from the greatest of affairs in which Allah, and of the greatest of affairs that we can speak about, is the affairs of guidance and misguidance. And that is the actual central, you're making me nervous because you got to leave. Just the actual central, the actual doors of the divine decree and its matters. Because the most virtuous and the greatest of what Allah has preordained for His servant is guidance. Right or not? Right or wrong? The greatest and the most virtuous of what Allah has preordained and destined for His servant is guidance. It's the greatest ni'am of Allah. And from the most greatest and the most greatest of balaya, of trials and tribulations, and the opposite is that Allah will preordain against His servant misguidance. That is what agrees in all of the messengers altogether. That's the reason why the books that were revealed upon the creation that Allah, you'll find in all the books that it agrees in this fact. Even in the books that preceded from the other religions or other shara'i or legislations that are passed, the same exact thing. Because this is from the foundations of all the prophets and messengers, this belief. This is from the foundations that all of the messengers and prophets believe. Every single last one of them, and it was written in the previous books, this statement, which is that Allah guides whom He wills and misguides whom He wills. That was written in every book and every revelation that Allah sent with every prophet and messenger. That Allah guides whom He wills and He guides whom He wills and He misguides whom He wills. For verily guidance and misguidance is in His hand, tabarak wa ta'ala, not in the hand of the abd. But however, the abd can be the reason for guidance. If he chooses that affair, then Allah will increase him in it, depending on what type it is of misguidance or guidance. If the slave does a fact or a matter that will increase him in misguidance, Allah will misguide him. I'm going to discuss this in a minute. And if he does an act which will necessitate guidance, then he will be guided. And Allah will increase him in it. Like salam rahmatullah. So now that we started off, and that was the introduction, we discussed last class of the first category, which was what everyone, what did we say last class? The general type of guidance, which is not the guidance of Iman or faith, but it's the guidance that is shared between the creation, all of them. And this is what I mentioned last class. For example, that every creation, in which Ibn Abbas even mentioned tafsir of that ayah, which is in Surah Al-A'la, that he said of what the creation has been guided towards, of something that's done instinctively and in their natural disposition. For example, that the womb of the child, or the janeen, or the fetus, of course, or even the baby, I'm sorry, when the woman gives birth, that the baby naturally, instinctively knows who's its mother. And they naturally know how to suckle, naturally, without you teaching it anything. Once your baby comes out the womb, automatically it knows how to move its mouth in a certain way and gravitate towards the what? The breast. Did anyone teach it? Nothing. That's natural. Natural guidance. That guidance is a guidance that is shared amongst all of the creation. That's type of the creation which Ibn Abbas even mentioned in tafsir of the ayah, Surah Al-A'la. That type of general guidance, whereas, like we said, where the baby will be guided towards the mother, where the mother will give it suckling, or suckle the baby. So, and other affairs. For example, naturally how a man knows how to, also intimacy and things that ultimately or instinctively knows that in these days and times, because it's been altered. But naturally, if the people weren't corrupted by the outside influences of this world, then a man would naturally know to go to a woman. And a woman would naturally go to know to be with a what? With a man. If they were not affected by the outside influences or corruptive ideologies of this world. Those are natural type of guidance that is shared amongst all the creation, and the examples I've given. There's a lot of this in which Ibn al-Qayyim said there's more that could be counted. It can't be enumerated and counted, the examples of this. Depending on different animals, how Allah Ta'ala, not only did He create, but He gave everyone a distinct type of image, not making them all resemble, and making them different in certain ways, in certain shapes and sizes, and all these other affairs, in which Allah Ta'ala, that's the meaning of taswiyah. So not only did Allah create, but He perfected His creation by these type of affairs that we're just mentioning now, of shapes, of sizes, and also pertaining to the animals. Same thing, of how each animal has its own type of way of living, or what it eats, or what it's guided towards as far as knowing its own type of way of eating, or ultimately cultivating its own child. All these things are what? Done instinctively, and which is a type of guidance that's shared amongst what? All of the creation. Everyone shares in that, whether it be human beings, animals, or what have you. And for example, also you'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim uses the example of the bees, how they naturally know to do certain things. And if you study the science of the bees, how? It's bewildering and astonishing how the bees, how they operate naturally without anyone teaching anything. How, if you listen and look to how the bees, how they actually operate, it's astonishing. It's bewildering. How Allah Ta'ala instinctively put this as a type of guidance for them to what? To know how to carry out their living on a daily basis. And this is the type of hidayah, which is the first category that we discussed last class, right everyone? Taib. You have the second type of hidayah that we talked about. This type of hidayah, I wanted to throw a curveball in there. The first one would think, how can you throw a curveball in there? Taib. Again, a person would say, I think AbdurRazzaaq, well, what can you throw in here that could be confusing? I am going to throw something in there. This type of general hidayah, which is comprehensive for everything that exists. Of course, I think every human being, they acknowledge this by what they see, and even by their insight, and by their knowledge of what they notice, by experience and what they see. That this is something that is witnessed and seen by everyone. They acknowledge this, that Allah Ta'ala just did not create. But all these different examples and characteristics and all these different details is part of the word فَسَوَّى. فَخَلَقَ فَسَوَّى. That He created and He perfected it. Meaning, not only did He just leave it to be created, but He added and gave it also characteristics and certain affairs so it could be distinct, so they can know who's who and identify different people, or different, depending on type of species or type, then everybody has its own type of way which suits it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear? For example, and he says, it doesn't matter whether it be the insects, the plants. Of course, even though we know how plants are all nurtured from photosynthesis and all those different things are bewildering. Of chlorophyll and how photosynthesis takes place and all those other things is bewildering. It's astonishing. So Allah didn't just to create, but He made it in a way that what? Everything suits its own what? Way. To keep it alive. To keep it for also what? To exist. طيب. Notice in the ayah Surah Al-Mulk, Allah Ta'ala says, مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوُتٍ فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُطُورٍ ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ يَنْقَلِبَ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصَرُ الْخَاسِئُ وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. طيب. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mulk that He says, you do not see in the creation of Ar-Rahman tafawut, any type of rift or any type of any rifts or any discrepancies. You didn't do anything. Hey, ahsant. Flaws, rifts, discrepancies, whatever. Taib, mumtaz. Just give you a bunch of synonyms. That's my synonym. خلق الرحمن من تفاوت. طيب. So, however, let's just say now, what if someone has been deprived of that type of what? Perfection, meaning that they're deaf, or they're blind, or they can't hear, or they can't speak, or what have you. These affairs go back to what Allah wanted for the creation as far as in this affair of taswi, of perfection. It ultimately still goes back to what Allah wants. And He can what? He can hold it back from who He wills out of some type of wisdom. This type of taswiyah, this perfection, in regards to the human beings, of course. Because ultimately, all those affairs, and even if not only just khalq, but taswiyah is also connected with the will of Allah. That perfection, meaning those added details that we gave, of hearing and sight and all those other things that's considered from the perfection of creation. That ultimately also is tied in with the will of Allah and what Allah wants. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And Allah Ta'ala can hold it back for whom He wills out of some wisdom. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Right. However, listen to this. Now I want everyone to pay attention to what I talked about last class. I said that the ayat in the book of Allah, all of them are what? You cannot utilize the book of Allah or the sunnah, the message of Allah, for falsehood. Ever. Everything that's in the book of Allah, and the ayat in the book of Allah, to be utilized for falsehood can be flipped against you. It can be flipped against you. What example is it? Taib. The ayah that I just mentioned, Surah Al-Mulk, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you do not see in the creation of Ar-Rahman of any rifts or any discrepancies or any flaws, what have you. There's another ayah. Just listen. You see the mountains and you think that they're jamida. He said, you think that they're solid. But he said, but they're going to go past eventually like how clouds pass. He said, that's the perfection of Allah Ta'ala, of how He created, and He perfected everything. And Allah's all aware of what you do. Because we know on the day of resurrection, Allah is going to make the what? The mountains like scattered dust. It's going to be level with no problem. It's going to be decimated. Totally. And demolished. So just listen. This ayah, listen to Abdul-Jabbar al-Qadi al-Hamadani, the Mu'tazili. He said about, we're still in the first category, right, everyone? Listen to what he says. He said, you do not see in the creation of Ar-Rahman any type of what? Riff or discrepancies, right? You'll find that some of the Mu'tazila said, Abdul-Jabbar al-Qadi is a Mu'tazili. He said, this is the adiliyah to show that Allah does not create evil. He doesn't create evil. He said, because evil is from those rifts. Evil is from those rifts and from those discrepancies and those flaws in the creation. And Allah does not create what? Disbelief or oppression or any of these matters, because it contradicts with the perfect production or creation of Allah and its perfection. It's such a shubha. I want everyone to look in Surah Al-Mulk. If you look in the context, like I said, everyone, any shubha, any type of ambiguity or unclear matter, if you go and they use that ayah in the book of Allah, you'll find that the refutation is in there itself. Either in the same ayah or in the same ayah, or the beginning of the ayah or the end of the ayah. Or in ayats before it or ayats after it. Or ayats that's in the same page or ayats in the next page. The refutation is in there. Keep in mind, so this is what he's saying now. So basically, keep in mind, let me put this down to the side. So you see Abdul-Jabbar al-Qadi al-Hamadani. So now you find that what? He's talking about what we discussed a month ago. This is the reason why it's important to have usul salafiyah in your veins. So as far as now, if you go back to the month ago, I said this example. Number one is that the will of Allah breaks, and what Allah wants breaks down to two categories. The Mu'tazila negate that totally. We said that what Allah wants in this existence is of two types, as we know. What Allah wants in His religion, what Allah wants as far as in what? Creation. Creation. Amongst the human beings or what have you, in the creation. Tayyib. Abdul-Jabbar al-Qadi, the Mu'tazili, what he did was, he has the belief, and this is the reason why discrepancy in Aqidah makes one fall into this type of nonsense. Because you got to go back to the foundation of what they believe. What he believes is, he doesn't believe that Allah Ta'ala, that He has no will as far as in regards to the creation, whereas evil or kufr or disbelief or sin or evil, what have you in general, all of it is connected with what Allah wills. They don't believe that. They negate it. Ahlul Sunnah says what? Good and evil, Allah Ta'ala allows it to happen for some wisdom. Even though at the same time, what? Evil is not ascribed to Allah. Because Allah Ta'ala allows good and evil to happen for a reason and for wisdom behind it. That's the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. The Mu'tazila say no, we negate that. We don't believe that Allah's will, what He wants or what He intends in His creation breaks down to two categories. We don't believe that. What Allah wants in His creation and what Allah wants wants in His religion. We said in regards to what Allah wants in the creation, for good and evil has to happen. And it's all out of some good that Allah Ta'ala knows. And I gave examples of this. I don't need to go over this again. For example, Allah allows people to be sick. That's evil, what we perceive. But it's good behind it. Why? Because it removes sins. It raises your level in degrees with Allah. It allows your reward to be increased. Is it becoming clear now? We perceive it as evil, but Allah allowed it to be what? Some good behind it. That's why we say these things, Allah still allows it to happen. If you hear what we're saying to Ahlul Sunnah makes sense. What the Mu'tazila believe is confusing. Why? Now you're saying, for example, now Allah Ta'ala, based upon the belief of the Mu'tazila, that Allah had no will over what took place, and that Allah Ta'ala is free from evil, and these are things are not by Allah's will, because this is considered imperfection. Why? Because they mixed up both categories as far as what? In regards to the belief and the foundation of the proper creed and belief of a Muslim. Is that good and evil, both of it happens by the will of Allah. And Allah Ta'ala allows these affairs to happen. The Mu'tazila say no. Evil is not from the will of Allah. It's alleviated. It's eliminated. Because that's considered what? In their eyes, is considered what? Imperfection. Taib. Now listen to what this creed type of belief or this type of methodology led to. Now listen to this. Now, the Abdul-Jabbar al-Qadi came to the great Imam Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini. And I said this already. He said to him, I said this a couple of weeks ago. And I want everyone to listen to what he says. And I want everyone to give me, what does he mean by that? He says, Subhanalladhi tanazzaha anil fahsha. قال أبو إسحاق الإسفرائيني سبحان الذي لا يحدث في ملكه إلا بما شاء. Abdul Qadi al-Jabbar al-Hamadani said, Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar al-Hamadani mentioned and said, glory be to the one who's far above evil. Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini refuted it by saying, glory be to the one that nothing takes place in his kingdom and his existence except what he wills. Does anyone understand what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying so far? I'll say it again. Abdul Qadi al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar al-Hamadani said, Subhanalladhi tanazzaha anil fahsha. Glory be to the one who's high above evil. Why? Because he doesn't affirm and say that evil is what? From the will of Allah. Because they believe that is what? Imperfection. Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini refuted him by saying, glory be to the one that nothing takes place in this existence about except what he wills. What did he affirm? That good and evil, Allah allows it to happen. Out of some wisdom that Allah knows. And that nothing takes place in this existence about except by his will. Nothing happens in this existence except what he wills. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's what he started off. So Qadi, he opened up the whole conversation with this batil, with this falsehood. And if a Muslim didn't have Aqidah Salafi and heard this statement, yeah, they'll be like, yeah, that sounds right. He's glory far be above upon what? High above evil. If you didn't know Usul Salafiyah and what he came with, you would think, that do sound right. That sounds correct. Sounds correct. But it's what? It's batil. It's false. Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini, this is the reason why these type of narration shows the level of the ulama in regards to us. How people can come with statements that sounds good, but they know what the intent is based upon experience and based upon their deep knowledge in usul salafiyah. They know what they intend about a statement. Such as the statement these days and times, there's no abuat, so there's no pope in the religion. There's no pope in the religion. There's nobody that's a pope that's considered the pope from Ahlul Sunnah. You'll find that statement being now widespread. Trust me, it's going to grow. That's the new fitna coming. Allah knows best. Y'all are going to remember this class because yeah, there's no pope in the religion. Yeah. Nobody blind follows. Yeah. Here it comes. So now, these type of statements, the ulama knows the intent behind it. The intent behind it is to now reject and ridicule and mock the ulama of Ahlul Sunnah. From the statements of Sheikh Rabi' and to the statements of Sheikh Salih Fawzan, don't give them any value because we don't have to listen to them. Who are they? They're not the Pope of our religion. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Fine. Getting back to what Abdul Qadir, what he said in the statement. He said, glory be to the one who's far above evil. Abu Ishaq Isfara'ini knew exactly what he meant. He meant that Allah's wills, he has no will over the what? Over evil. Meaning there's something that takes place in this existence of what he doesn't will, and from that is evil. So he knew what to say back to him. He said, glory be to the one that nothing happens in this existence except what he wills. Is it clear? Then Abu Ishaq, Qadi Abdul Jabbar al-Hamadani followed up with another shubha. He says, أَيُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُعْصَى هَلْ يُرِيدُ رَبُّنَا أَن يُعْصَى? Now then he followed up with another shubha. He says, does our Lord want to be disobeyed? And we answered this. He says, does our Lord want to be disobeyed? Is that what you're trying to say, Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini? Based upon the usul of Sunnah, what do we say in answer to this? Now, based upon in the existence, what Allah wills in His creation, maybe yes. As far as in the religion, no. Because Allah prohibited certain affairs. So it's not a question you can answer with yes, totally, or no, totally. It's a trick question. If you say no, you negated the haqq, which is what Allah Ta'ala wants as far as in the religion, which He commanded that people what? Follow. Because you have to comply with everything what He says in the religion. And if you say yes totally, then you agree with what? With what He said. Which make you fall into the trap of Him negating evil, totally. That's not connected with Allah's will. So we say in regards to this statement, does Allah want to be disobeyed? You could say from the aspect of the irada of Allah, break it down to two categories. In regards to what Allah intends in the creation, maybe, perhaps. We can't say definitely, because nobody can say, well, Allah wants me to disobey Him. No. We said maybe, perhaps. Yes. Because Allah allows good, and He allows what? Evil to happen. For wisdom. But as far as the second category, meaning in the religion, what we supposed to abide by, then no, we're not supposed to disobey Allah. Rather, we're supposed to what? Obey Allah. So it's a trick question. So that's the reason why Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini followed it up when he says, أَيُعْصَى رَبُّنَا قَهْرًا? He says, is our Lord disobeyed out of force? He refuted him. Just keep listening. Then he said, أَرَأَيْتَ إِن قَضَى عَلَيْهَ بِالرَّدَى. أَرَأَيْتَ, now he said to Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini, he says, أَرَأَيْتَ إِن قَضَى عَلَيْهَ بِالْهُدَى إن قَضَى عَلَيْهَ بِالرَّدَى ومنعني الهدى أأحسن إلي أم أساء قال إن منعك ما هو لك فقد أساء وإن منعك ما هو فضله ففضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء. So then he said, if you see that Allah has preordained for me destruction or misguidance, and He held from me guidance, you alright? Yeah. Good. I'll see you later, inshallah. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Barakallahu feekum. Okay, got you. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you see that Allah, do you not see that if Allah had preordained for me misguidance, and He held back from me guidance, did Allah do something good to me or something evil for me? Another shubha. So Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini said, if Allah held back from you what belongs to you, then He's done something evil. But if He held back from you what belongs to Allah, and it's His virtue and His bounty, then the fadl of Allah, He gives it to whom He wills. Shut him up. Because Allah, in regards to the creation, Allah owns everything. Allah Ta'ala owns everything. طيب. These are from, if you really got into Aqidah, these are the type of shubahat you will get into. But it will make you strong in Aqidah though. Very strong. طيب. Now let's get back to this statement of Al-Qadi Abdul-Jabbar Al-Hamadani. He came with another shubha. He said, do you see in the creation of Ar-Rahman tafawut? Any rifts? طيب. If you go back to the ayah Surah Al-Mulk, notice he says now, in this statement right now, he's saying, this is a creation that Allah doesn't create what? Evil or falsehood. Because that's considered rifts based upon his belief. Number one, we say before we start to now demolish the shubha. First of all, Allah Ta'ala, look to the context of Surah Al-Mulk. Allah Ta'ala is talking about the creation of how it was created, not talking about the actions of the slaves. That's number one. If you notice in Surah Al-Mulk, in the context, it's saying the one who created seven heavens, one on top of another. You don't see in the creation of Allah any what? Any rifts. So here in the ayat, it's talking about what? Something of pertaining to the creation of the mountains or the hills, not in regards to the actions of the servants, because the actions of the servants break down to what? Good and evil. So in the ayat is it saying what? Refutation. Because his mind is now thinking that what? That Allah doesn't create good and evil. There is discrepancies. But why? Because he said, because now evil, as far as the actions of the servants of the human beings, is tied in with rifts. But if you look to the ayah is not talking about the actions of the servants at all. It's talking about the what? The mountains, the hills, the heavens, one on top of another, and also pertaining to the mountains in which Allah Ta'ala will make, like scattered dust on the day of resurrection, like how the clouds will move. طيب. So the ayah is not talking about what? The actions of the servants at all. That's number one. You understand? It's not talking about af'al al-ibad. It's number one. Number two. Also the ayah, same thing. I was just mentioning, alhamdulillah, I ain't going to repeat it again. So that shows that he broke off, or the second number two, we could say this, that he utilized the ayah by breaking it off, by not connecting the context. So it could be known what the actual intent of the ayah was. And that's what you'll find that the majority of the people of falsehood that they do. They'll take a part of the ayah and they'll leave off the rest of the ayahs that come before it or the ayahs that come after it, because they know in the same ayah is a what? It refutes exactly what they're talking about. And wallahi, brothers, I've seen this happen for so many people of falsehood, even of today here in America and even overseas. That same ayah they use as a dalil, if the Muslims, the regular common folk, had enough sense to read a little bit of the ayahs before, or page before it, or page after it, look at the tafsir of it, it would totally demolish what he's talking about. Demolish it. This is the same exact example, what he did right here. He cut off a part of the ayah. He's saying, see, this shows that there's discrepancy. There's no discrepancies in the actions of the slaves, because Allah can't create evil, because the ayah here says that Allah has no rifts in his creation. But the ayah is talking about what? It's talking about the mountains and the hills, not the actions of the slaves. Because the actions of the slaves breaks down either into good or what? Or evil. And the intent of the ayah is an exact part of the ayah, clarifying what is what? What it's indicating. So that's number one. Or number two, excuse me. Also, we know that Allah Ta'ala has clarified in other ayats that Allah Ta'ala talks about how he creates the creation from the human beings and what they do. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He created you and what you do. Which is a clear ayah to let one know that from good and evil of the actions of the slaves is from what? Well, Allah created. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I'm getting a little bit deep here because I'm trying to show how how much insight the ulama has, that they can read between the lines of these type of nonsense. And this is the reason why they put it out to the people, because these statements sounds correct if you hear it. They're like, man, that do sound correct. But the people who have knowledge and have insight as far as usul salafiyya knows what the intents of these people are. There's something evil behind all this. It's evil. And it's in opposition to what Allah revealed. Total opposition. So it's clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? No. Surah Al-Mulk. Surah Al-Saffat, 96. Surah Al-Saffat, ayah number 6. He created you and what you do. Taib, everyone. So this is the first category of hidayah. I think I went a little bit deep into it. I won't go too deep like this all the time. Sometimes I'll take time to really go deep to show how usul salafiyya is so important. Because I want to teach everyone to show how important it is. And if you don't know these principles, you will be easily misled. And the reason why a lot of us, walillahi alhamd, from a lot of the students of knowledge in this area, have had an opportunity to what? To study these matters. And to know when we hear nonsense and know nonsense when we hear it. But the common folk, because of us in general, not knowing our lanes, everybody thinks they're on the same level. Oh, I got to listen to you students of knowledge. I know just better than you. What he's saying is the truth. Well, I feel that you're just jealous of him. And I feel that. Okay, all right. All right, so now after 2 or 3 or 4 years, after he's misguided you, you wasted your time, you'll be back here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just apologize, okay. You apologize. That's good. But you've wasted 4 or 5 years of your life on nonsense. You wasted your time. If Allah was good for you, you'll be back. You'll be back. That's what we say to some spouses, right? Or women say to some men that treated them bad, or men or some women that treated their husband bad. Usually they'll try to come back because they realize what they lost, right? Same thing even with salafiyya. You realize what you lost when you start going to those masajid and you hear a bunch of nonsense. And then you be like, man, I miss going back to the Salafi masajid. Let me get my hell out of here. Let me get out of here. Coming back to hear this nonsense, and I left here for to hear this nonsense. Charlie, the people don't know until they lose something. Then you want it back. Then you might be too late. So we say in this regard, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa. So we said that this was a refutation against those from the Mu'tazila. So this is the first category of hidayah, which is shared amongst the creation, and how some of the people of innovation even deviated in this matter. Then you have the second type, like we said, which is the guidance of the heart, which is only for Allah to bring with ta'ala. And the example of that is in your books, in this chapter of the hadith, in which we'll talk about, inshallah. If you look in your books, that is the category for the... I'm sorry, the way I arranged it was the third category. I'm sorry, everyone. The second category is the guidance of clarification. What they call irshad, wa bayan. Guidance of clarification, direction, indication, guiding, not guiding as far as the heart, but guidance as far as clarification and explaining. That type of what? Guidance. You have to leave. Oh, man, what you... Type. Second category is what, everyone? Clarification, direction. To point one in the right direction and indicate them to what's what? Correct. As we said before, that is what? The ayat in the book of Allah to be with Allah sent down in regards to the message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam that he owns. And those are from the du'at, from the callers, upon insight and guidance likewise. Right, everyone? Those callers that are upon insight and ilm, of course they own this matter. And those who have the ability to call upon insight, depending on their level. For that is in the affairs in the hands of the creation, as we know. And that's what the ayah in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught when he addressed the message of Allah, إِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Verily you most definitely guide to the correct path. So in those ayats that's affirming it, it's affirming that category. That category. And in the ayats that's you see that which he inaugurated the chapter, that's affirming the third category. So this category is what? I'll see you next week. I'll be this week. It's this Saturday, isn't it? This Saturday. طيب. What was I saying? No. So the second category. Second category is in regards to what the message of Allah. When I affirming hidayah for the message of Allah, that's in regards to the second category of clarification and direction, in giving what is correct, and establishing the proofs, and clarifying. That's in the hands of what? The message of Allah and the du'at. Those from the callers who possess ilm and insight, they are the ones that what? Have, what's the 10-minute warning or the 20-minute? What's the 10-minute? 10-minute warning. 10-minute. طيب. So that's from the category what? Of this type of guidance, which is in the hands of that the creation has their portion of this type of guidance. Type. Does now this type of guidance necessitate that the guidance of the heart will take place? No, it doesn't. Or that the person will follow the truth all the time? No, it will not. And the greatest of what we know is dalil, of evidence and proof, which will be a relief for us, for people who reject the proper guidance, from people who we might be close to in our families, who we have natural love for those type of people who we would love for them to be guided, of them rejecting it. We'll find that during the times of the greatest of creation, who came with the greatest of clarification, the greatest of eloquence, the greatest of those who established proof against the creation, were the prophets and messengers. And despite of that, even they, from those who were close to them, didn't want to accept what? The guidance. We have Ibrahim, alayhi salam, the Prophet himself, alayhi salatu wasalam, which is in your books. He, alayhi salatu wasalam, that was given every clear sign of him being a messenger and prophet that you can think of. Now, there's no type of sign except that Allah made it clear with the message of Allah, of him being a prophet and messenger. To the point before the revelation started, Allah made it clear that he was the most truthful and most trustworthy individual in his whole community. So when the evidence came and when Allah started the revelation, no one had no room to what? Reject it. Because you know that he was a man that was what? You even called him what? The reliable and trustworthy one. Before the revelation started. Out of his whole society, the message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam was called what? The trustworthy one. They would say, go to someone who's trustworthy, one from all of us. Go to him. He's known to be the most truthful. He's known to be the most trustworthy. He's the one that's the most upright individual. Go to him. They all used to point to him. Allah made it clear as the sun in the sky before it started. The message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam looked like a prophet. He had a stature of a prophet. He was handsome like a prophet. He had every type of characteristic of the best of human beings. He was the most truthful. He had the greatest lineages. Every sign you could think of. Every sign you could think of that was to show he was a messenger and prophet, he had it, and despite of that, people still rejected it. If that's the case with him, alayhi salatu wasalam, who are we? You understand, everyone? So that would be what tasliyah, or a sign of relief for us, for those who disbelieve. Because actual ihtida, of being guided, that's something that's in the hands of Allah alone. And it does not go back to the what? The abd, which pulls us everyone to what? To the third category. However, before I get to the third category, the ayah, as I said yesterday, or excuse me, last class, Wednesday, or no, Friday. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Fussilat, ayah number what? 17. He says, as for Thamud, then we guided them. And they preferred misguidance over guidance. And the sa'iqatul adhab al-hum, that disgraceful torment had took them because of what they earned. Allah Ta'ala says He guided them, but they preferred misguidance over guidance. What type of guidance did we say here? Which category in your books? What was written down? Is it 2 or 3? It's 2 here. Number 2. Meaning that Allah Ta'ala sent someone to clarify to them, who was Salih. As we know, Salih was sent to Thamud. Prophet Salih was sent to Thamud and given signs of prophethood, clarifying to them what was correct, and despite of that, they rejected it. And they preferred misguidance, which is a form of a blindness, meaning misguidance of the heart is a form of blindness. And they preferred that over guidance. And Allah Ta'ala took them with that terrible, destructive torment because of what they earned. But the point of matter here is in the ayah, the point of reference why I mention this, that this was considered from the second category, which is of guidance of direction, pointing one into what's correct. That type of guidance, which is the guidance and clarification from Prophet Salih alayhi salam. The third category, as we said, everyone, is what? The guidance of the heart. And the guidance of the heart, and the guidance of success, and the guidance of also being stable or being firm upon that guidance. All that's from tawfiq from Allah. Stability in the religion, firmness, steadfastness, and being in a state where you're a person that's being encouraged to do good. Where Allah Ta'ala, if He wants good for the abd, He will place in his heart guidance to be motivated to do what? Righteousness. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's based upon the ayah. That's based upon the ayah that Allah Ta'ala says in His book, in Surah Shams, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. He inspired the fajr and He inspired the taqi. He inspired the one who's a criminal, and He inspired the one who's a taqi, the one who's what? Who's fearing of Him. If Allah wants good for the abd, if He wants good for him, He will put in his heart the inspiration or meaning, the tawfiq. The tawfiq and the success for him to be what? Upright. If the abd now puts forth the action or the effort that will cause the tawfiq of Allah to be increased, of doing something of good and accepting guidance, which Allah will increase him in it. And the opposite can occur. If one rejects guidance and one rejects what is correct, or doing an act that might necessitate ghay, a misguidance, until Allah will increase him in misguidance. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? طيب. The tawfiq from Allah Ta'ala in regards to the heart, like we said, that all of that is from the third category, where it's of insight, where it's of tawfiq, where it's of being inspired and motivated to do good. If Allah wants good for the abd, He will inspire and He will put in his heart iman, and He will also be from those who will what? Be motivated to do what is correct. And we know that doing something, and I want everyone to know that upright actions is a ni'mah from Allah. One has to realize that. This is what I'll stop at last class. That when you do righteous actions, you have to realize that is from the bounties of Allah, Allah has bestowed upon you. Because if Allah wanted to humiliate you, He would put something else in your heart, that you would not be inspired to do righteous actions. You'd be inspired to do something else. Rather, you'll be given or some type of tawfiq that Allah will snatch you, which if He wanted to what? He wanted to humiliate you. And he will snatch that success and that tawfiq, whereas now the one will want to be inspired to do something of what? Of evil. And be what? To be leaned towards it, inclined towards it, until he's misguided. So one considers that his bounty, his good deeds or his righteous actions, a ni'mah from Allah and a bounty from Allah that Allah bestows upon him. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Because a person does something that can necessitate you being removed. And that is because of that ayah. As Allah Ta'ala says in his book, as he says, for those who are ungrateful, of all his bounties and his blessings that he bestows, he snatches it. If one is not what? Grateful. He takes it away. That's the reason why, like I said, in this city of Philadelphia and the tri-state area, if we don't start being grateful for Salafiyah, it can be snatched. And I do not mean by being removed as far as from the books, but however, from Allah misleading the people and changing their hearts to be directed towards something else. And this is what you see going on right now. That is the ultimate humiliation. It's the ultimate humiliation. 4 more minutes. What do you think, Amir? Amir's in the corner chilling. No, that Amir. Keep going. Oh, Amir said it, khalas. I got a couple more minutes. No, the other Amir in the office. Fine. That Salafiyah can be what, everyone? It can be snatched and taken away because of the disobedience and ungratefulness of the people. The ungratefulness and due to the sins and due to the actions and the filth of what the people are committing. And I do not have no doubt in my mind that, that social media is a major part of this. Of how many we see, of how people brag about their sins all day long. And how they utilize it for corruption and utilize it to instill evil or sadness and grief inside of the people. That type of great ni'mah, as I said, everyone, the greatest ni'mah, we just opened the whole class up by saying the greatest of ni'mah is what, everyone? Is guidance from Allah. It's the greatest of all bounties that Allah could bestow upon the abd. There is no bounty greater than the huda of Allah after that. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam said in a profound statement, tremendous statement. And when he said, أعظم الكرامة لزوم الاستقامة. No, that's what he said. He said, أعظم الكرامة لزوم الاستقامة. He said, the greatest honor that Allah could bestow upon the slave is him sticking to uprightness. أعظم الكرامة لزوم الاستقامة. So the greatest of what? Of honor that Allah could bestow upon the abd. And it's a karama. Notice he called it a karama. Meaning it's from those affairs that Allah Ta'ala that he wants to make for his abd, for real good for him. If he truly wants to honor him, he will allow him to give him stability to stick and cling to uprightness. Luzum al-istiqama. Meaning to stick to or cling to uprightness. So that shows that type of inspiration or that type of tawfiq is from Allah, and it's a bounty from Allah. That's the reason why Allah Ta'ala says in his book, in Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 53. Allah Ta'ala says about this, he said, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَكُ مُغَيِّرًا نِعْمَةً أَنْعَمَهَا عَلَى قَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ السَّمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. He said that is because Allah he will not change a bounty that Allah has bestowed upon the people until they change what is in themselves. And that Allah is all hearing and He's all knowledgeable. So now once the people start changing within themselves, then Allah Ta'ala starts what? Taking His ni'mah away from them. And that's what you see was happening all throughout our areas. Where people are being inclined towards all these evil callers, where their salafiyah is being tested, or their salafiyah is being taken away. I've seen people now, there's so many people that's being attracted to evil callers now. So many. It's scary. Be very, very scary. How people say the ni'mah of salafiyah is being taken away. And I do not mean by it being taken away as far as from the books. It's being taken away in 2 ways. People that it's being removed from their hearts and being now inclined towards something different, or the callers now are getting older and they're being removed. The true callers who are calling to it purely. They're getting older and they're getting frustrated too. And they what? And to the point where there will be no one left except those who are what? The ignorant ones to misguide the people. And that's what you see what's going on now. So the ni'mah of Salafiyya, like we said, is the greatest ni'mah. And if the people are not grateful, it could be what? Taken away, just like any ni'mah could be taken away if one is not what? Grateful for it. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? That's the reason why I said in the last statement that Sulaiman ad-Darani, and this is what I gave to you last class, he says, this is a statement, he says, فَمَنِ اعْتَرَفَ بِنِعْمِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ أَوْجَبَ لَهُ ذَلِكَ شِدَّةُ الْإِفْتِقَارِ إِلَيْهِ. That whoever now recognizes and he confesses the bounties of Allah upon him, it's obligatory now him to have that dire shiddah, be in that state of dire need for him ta'ala to keep him upon that. Listen to what he says. Listen to what Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani, rahimahullah, that he said in a tremendous, profound statement that could be written in gold. Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani, he said in this statement, he said, كيف يعجب عاقل بعمله وإنما يعد العمل نعمة من الله إنما ينبغي له أن يشكر ويتواضع. He said, Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani, he said, how does a person with true understanding be amazed at his actions? How can a person with true, sound intellect and understanding be amazed at his actions? Verily, he considers his actions a bounty from Allah and a blessing from Allah. Verily, he considers his actions a blessing and a bounty from Allah. And if that's the case, which it is, then it is befitting for him to thank Allah, be thankful, and humble himself. To be thankful for Allah and what? Humble himself. So this type of narrations also befits the one who's arrogant, the one who becomes amazed at himself. Because everything that you do of good is from Allah, and your actions is from the ni'mah of Allah. And your actions and what you do of righteousness is a bounty that Allah has bestowed upon you. And it's not from yourself, it's what Allah has inspired you of tawfiq in your heart that He's planted so you could be motivated to do that righteous action. And if Allah wanted to humiliate us, He would what? He would put something in your heart, something else, and you would do evil, and He would humiliate you. And that's the reason why it says in the ayah, and He will humiliate us. May Allah preserve us from that. And that's the reason why, like I said, it goes back to the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, He says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. He has inspired the fajr. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا. The one who's fujur, the one who's what commits it, Allah has given him some type of what? Inclination. You understand, everyone? And He's inspired the what? The taqwaha. The one who is what? Who's a taqi. He's given him some type of what? Tawfiq and guidance. So a person has to now always expose himself, which will be a reason for him being guided, which is to do those righteous actions and to be thankful and to keep yourself humble for Allah to be with ta'ala. And to be more what? And to be more tactful in how you correct people. Because we were all at one time misguided. Except for those who Allah has bestowed ni'mah upon from the first day. But the majority of us were misguided. And we were in the shoes of certain people. And we rather want someone to be what? Have tactfulness when they correct us. So don't be so hard to be ridiculing and looking down upon people when you see them upon disobedience. Alhamdulillah. Because at one time this was you, and if Allah bestowed His ni'mah where you became upright, then be thankful and be what? Humble. Take the person by the hand, not to be so hard, and not to be so what? So harsh in regards to what you're trying to what? That direction you're trying to direct them in, or redirecting them. Not to be so harsh. to have the gentleness for your brothers and your sisters, your Salafi brothers and sisters, or even the new Shahada that has embraced Islam, to be some more tolerant and to be more forbearing and to have some more patience. And not to say, Akhi, a'udhu billah, astaghfirullah, you're not supposed to. Akhi, that, at one time that was you too. Remember when you wasn't doing certain things you shouldn't have been doing. And people were patient with you. And people directed you. And people had mercy on you. And people tolerated your nonsense at one time. Until you became what? Until you became guided. Then a person should constantly be what? They should do the same for others who are in that predicament, to be what? As a reason for them to be guided. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? We'll stop here. So that's the third category, which is what? Tawfiq from Allah. The tawfiq of the heart from Allah Ta'ala. So, and then the fourth, I still didn't get to it yet. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.